Let's work the following applied problem. How many gallons of paint, rounded to the whole gallon, are needed to paint the walls and ceiling of a room that is 16.5 feet long by 12 3/8 feet wide by 9.5 feet high? Figure it as if there's no doors or windows, and assume the paint covers 400 square feet per gallon. So to find how many gallons of paint, let's figure out the square footage of this room. To find the square footage, we'll see that we need to find the square area of both the ceiling and the four walls. So consider this rectangle to be the ceiling. We'll also need a rectangle representing two pairs of walls that are across from each other. So if this is, say, wall number 1, the wall across from this will also be the same size and shape. So this will also be the wall across from it, or our third wall. We'll also need two other walls that are next to these, say wall number 2 and wall number 3, and these will also be identical in size and shape as well. So we'll paste two more rectangles for each one of these two other walls, which will be the four walls of the room and the ceiling. To find the square area of each one of these, we'll use the formula for the area of a rectangle, which is area being the length times the width, where the length and the width are the two sides of each rectangle. Let's now label each one of these 5 rectangles with the different dimensions. If the room measures 16.5 feet long by 12 3/8 feet wide, for our ceiling it will be 16.5 feet long and 12 3/8 feet wide. For our first and third walls, it would be 16.5 feet long and 9.5 feet tall. So we'll label this as 16.5 feet long in each one of these, and 9.5 feet high. In these remaining two walls, these walls will be, for the width, they'll both be 12 3/8 feet wide, and they're also going to be 9.5 feet high again. So in each one of these rectangles, we now need to find the area by multiplying each length by each width. So let's begin by first finding the ceiling. To find the area, we'll multiply, to find the area of this will be 16.5 times 12 3/8. To find this easily, let's convert the fraction components 1/2 and 3/8 to a decimal. So using a TI-83 graphing calculator, we'll take and divide 1/2 as a decimal. 1 divided by 2 becomes 0.5. So our area we can find really as 16.5 multiplied by 3/8 as a decimal is 3 divided by 8, which becomes 0.375. So 12.375. So using our calculator, 16.5 multiplied by 12.375 becomes 204.1875. We'll round this to the nearest square foot. So the area of this will become 204 square feet. That would be the area of our ceiling. For the area of wall 1 or wall 3, we can find this area again by multiplying each of the lengths by each of the widths. So this area will, right within the spot, that this would be 16.5 multiplied by 9.5. 1/2 we found is 0.5, so this area would be 16.5 multiplied by 9.5. On our calculator, 16.5 times 9.5 becomes 156.75. If we round this up to the nearest square foot, this would be 157 square feet. So this would be 157 square feet. Since our third wall is identical to our first wall, the area of our third wall would also be 157 square feet. Now, let's compute the square footage for both our second and our fourth walls. So in these cases, for our second wall, the area would be length times width again, or 12 3/8 multiplied by 9 1/2. Converting these to decimals again, our area would be 12.3/8 was 0.375, multiplied by 9 1/2 converted to 0.5. So multiplying on our left 12.375 times 9.5, we get 117.5625, which, as we round up to the nearest square foot, would be 118 square feet. So the area of our second wall would be 118 square feet. Similarly, our fourth wall would be identical, so the area of our fourth wall would be 118 square feet. Let's find now the total of the square footages of all of our four walls and ceiling. So the total square feet would be the ceiling, which is 204, added to wall 1 and wall 3 would both be 157. Added to our second and fourth walls are both 118. So using our calculator to tally this number up, we would get 204 plus 157 plus another 157 plus 118 plus another 118. This comes to a total of 754 square feet. So this becomes a total of 754 square feet that we would need paint for. Our original question was how many gallons would we need, where 1 gallon of paint covers 400 square feet. So to find out the number of gallons needed, we'll take 754 square feet and multiply it by a conversion, where we know that 1 gallon of paint covers 400 square feet. We multiplied it with this conversion so that the square feet would cancel. And so we're really left with 754 divided by 400. So 754 divided by 400 would become 18. 754 divided by 400, that was, is 1.885. So rounding this to the nearest gallon, we find that we would need roughly, instead of 1.885, we'll round this to the nearest gallon to become 2 gallons of paint. So the solution to our problem is, to paint this room, we would need 2 gallons of paint to cover our 754 square feet that was found from the areas of our 4 walls and ceiling. This is our final answer.